Tales of the Sea has always captured people's imagination ever since the 19th century. Treasure Island, Kidnapped are but two books depicting the incredible lives of seafaring sailors. But the book I'm about to review today has it all. Poverty, famine, cannibalism, and shipwreck. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HMS Voyager. The book is published by David Grann, whose most famous book, Killer of the Flower Moon, I have read previously. It was a really good book and has recently made it into a movie, which has really put the author onto the literary map as heavyweight. So when I pick up the Voyager, I had lots of expectations. And to be honest, it far exceeded what I have expected. The book was phenomenal. The book is based around mid-18th century during the British and Spanish War, or more commonly known as the War of Jenkins' Year. The name derived from the man named Robert Jenkins. He was caught by the Spanish smuggling stuff out of the seas controlled by Spain, and in order to punish him, they captured him and cut off his ears, and therefore humiliate Robert Jenkins as well as Britain, and therefore Britain declared war on Spain. You know, all the Spanish Armada, that sort of period. Voyager, as part of a larger fleet, has a very important mission. It needs to capture a Spanish man of war believed to carry tons and tons of precious metal, silver, gold, and other precious stones. So by capturing that, it can really boost the British war chest. They believe that the Spanish treasure boat is located somewhere on the west coast of Chile. In order to reach there, they have to sail all the way back from Portsmouth, down the west coast of Africa, come back to the southern tip of South America, or Patagonia region, and then go back up to the west coast of Chile in order to capture this Spanish ship. All was well until they have reached the southern tips of Patagonia. That particular part where the tip of South America meets the peninsula of Antarctica, resulting in a rather narrow tunnel, a passageway. It's called Drake's Passage. Now, Drake's Passage is notorious to be the most dangerous passing of the global shipping line. Now, unfortunately, Voyager was lost during this passage. It was completely lost with the other ships of the fleet, and it started to drift. The main mast was broken. The sail is no longer working. So they are really at the mercy of the sea, and as a result of that, they have shipwrecked against the southern tip of South America. The sailors named the island on which they shipwrecked as a Voyager Island. As food starts to run out, Captain Cheap finds his authorities start to wane. People divided into different groups, the largest of which was under the control or leadership of John Berkeley, the gunner. It is natural for people to coalesce around his side because he was very charismatic, he's very knowledgeable and very experienced. He's been sailing for years and years and years. Half of his life he's been sailing. As his group growing larger, David Cheap, the captain, found his group shrinking day by day, until one day the gunner decided that his group is large enough for him to really challenge the captain. The challenge really happened because of different strategy of what to do next. Now, being an officer, a captain, David Cheap wants to continue his original mission, i.e. building a vessel large enough to carry all the sailors so that they can continue all the way up west coast of Chile and to meet with the rest of the fleet to continue the mission of capturing this treasure ship of Spanish origin. John Berkeley had a complete different idea. He wants preservation, self-preservation first, so he wants to abandon the mission, build a vessel large enough to carry all the sailors, but instead of going all the way to Chile, he wants to go all the way to Brazil, which was under the Portuguese control. From there, he wants to make all the way back to England. There were some really vividly descriptive passages in the book about scurvy. Now, as men from modern society, as people from modern society, we only ever read about scurvy, then actually experienced ourselves. But the description here in this book are so vividly done, we can't help but to feel the pain experienced by those sailors. Now, scurvy is caused by lack of vitamin C, and in my mind, before I read this book, how bad can it be, right? But actually, it's very degenerative. It causes gum to bleed, your breath to smell really, really bad, and these are on the trivial side. As it progresses, you start to feel pain all over your joints because the cartilage connecting your bones needs vitamin C to function. As it progresses and becomes more severe, a patient starts to lose his mental faculty and really start to seeing things that were not there. So I really appreciate the passage of those paragraphs. I think they were really powerful and vivid. What's even more terrifying is the descriptions of famine. As the food ran out, people really start to get hungry. That starvation leads to attempted and succeeded cannibalism. Although cannibalism wasn't really described so much in the book, and the author explained, because all his sources, or most of his sources, came from the logbook written by the sailors themselves, and no sailor really want to admit of having eaten human flesh. But the author has no doubt that such practice was carried out quite extensively for people to actually survive. Disease, cannibalism, starvation, bad weather, the hardship that the sailors suffer on a daily basis becomes the fuel to burn this shimmering pot of dissatisfaction, this mutinous pot of dissatisfaction. What really tipped the pot over was the cold-blooded murder of one sailor. Now, this particular sailor was quite mutinous and he made lots of noise. He openly disobeyed the captain and became incredibly disrespectful. Now, one day he was making lots and lots of trouble. Captain Cheap at the time was very anxious and suffering from scurvy himself, so he was not all there himself, and then he was completely anxious, driven mad almost. He was worried about mutiny and he really wanted to climb it down as soon as he can. Now, when this sailor made so much trouble on that particular day, Captain David just jumped out of his tent, raised his pistol without asking what happened, and shot the guy in the face and killed him as a result. And that was really what kicked over this shimmering pot of dissatisfaction. Given this excuse, given this event, John Bulkley, the gunner, finally decided enough was enough. With his friend, he decided to relieve the captain of his duty and therefore openly revolt. Mutiny happened. Afterwards, John Bulkley and his associates did manage to build a vessel large enough to take everyone off the island and back to England, or rather back to Brazil. And that's what he did. But by doing that, he left the captain and his close circle of associates on the island, effectively condemned them to death. Miraculously, they made it to Brazil and from there back to England. Even more miraculous was the fact that after they have left, David Cheap, the captain, and his close associate, John Byron, and other people in that group managed to build their own vessel and escaped all the way to Chile and from there back to England. When everyone involved in Ouija finally arrived back in England, what resulted was nothing short of a median frenzy. All the newspapers started to print stories of what happened. They were trying to suss out what happened. Therefore, the sailor's narrative became premium. John Bulkley, the gunner who mutinied, decided to write his own narrative. It was turned into a book and became a bestseller almost overnight. Everyone wants to consume the story of the Ouija. What happened next is court-martial. The courtroom drama wasn't very exciting because to protect British Empire's reputation, the judge decided no one was guilty. The captain was not guilty of cold-blooded murder and gunner was not guilty of mutiny. Everyone was let go in the end because of the British reputation. I think this is the best non-fiction that I have ever read. I'm afraid this is even better than Elon Musk's biography. The reason for that is because it reads like fiction, like a very well written thriller fiction. I actually felt emotional attachment with many of the characters depicted in the book, and that has never happened in my life with non-fictional characters. I think it's so well written. Now, before I picked up the book, I was a little bit apprehensive because, you know, it's a story about life on ship, and I was afraid that there might be lots of jargons regarding ship words. I was a little bit apprehensive about the jargons that it might use on board ship. As it turned out, there were still lots of jargons, but the writer has written it in such a way that it was incredibly easy to digest, and the words that I don't understand, it's quite easy to actually suss it out or just Google it and find out. There weren't that many. It was very, very easy to understand, and that was really, really appreciated, because I thought it was going to be tedious in some ways, but was not that at all. Really, really enjoyed it. Highly, highly recommend it. Absolutely 5-star. I think this is non-fiction book of the year. It should be, if not already given. Highly recommend that book. If you haven't already, please check it out. You won't be disappointed. It feels like a fiction. It feels like a really well-written thriller fiction, 100%. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, cheerio.